Tsundoku, noun. Language of origin, Japanese. Meaning, the act of acquiring books but allowing them to pile up unread.
The moon god has turned the denizens of the forest into stone. Only with the actions of 4 animal ninja masters can their citizens turn back to fur. Futamaru, Hanako, Miyuki, and Yu will travel the countryside and storm Mount Fuji to defeat the villainous Tsukigami and save the night. My name is Chad Bonin, and this is D-Pads and DLC, a look at retro and retro-inspired games. The Nintendo Switch is perfect for a multiplayer action-adventure, and Mad Gear Games takes a bit of Super Nintendo styling with Kemono Heroes. Can these 4 animals compare to the heroes in a half shell, or is this more of a Rocket Knight misadventure?
Comics, games, animation, and a variety of henshin credible superhero shows from Japan. Chad Bonin guides you through the Tsundoku Zone. A copy of the following was supplied for review purposes.
But thoughts and opinions are my own. Kemono Heroes is a throwback to the golden age of mascot platformers. Have your fur-clad warriors storm their way across linear 2D levels. There's nothing in this game that couldn't have been handled on the Super Nintendo with a multi-tap adapter. Up to 4 local heroes can take on the mission to save the day at once, a feature I would have loved to try if we didn't live in the world of spring 2020. The problem with many 4-player games is that they can be a bit boring if you're only playing with 1 player. While I was able to get some 2-player action in, Kemono Heroes truly does work as a single-player game. It's never too big of a world for 1 mammal to handle, and while the action intensity does ramp up over the dozen-plus stages, double it up for a second round if you want, your character can appropriately level up as well. At the end of stages, you can use the money you've acquired to buy health upgrades, bombs, lives, and power up your various attacks. My initial playthrough was as Miyuki, the purple-themed cat. Her primary attacks are a sword for close combat and kunai for ranged. Armed with a double jump and a Strider-inspired wall grab, I never had trouble navigating the stages. She has a dive kick and dash, but those never seemed intuitive or necessary to use, and a hook attack is added later in the game for some new platforming challenges. When things did get tough or overwhelming, you have bombs at your disposal, which will help clear the screen of weaker enemies and do some damage to stronger ones. Thankfully, ranged attacks are unlimited, so you can fly through a level with a Contra-like hold of the fire button, but sadly, there's a lack of the ability to stay in one place. You can aim in 8 directions, but you're going to start moving in that direction. Other characters play largely the same, but with minor tweaks. Instead of wall grabs, you can run along rope lines, transform, or do a glide jump to coast gracefully down. The dozen levels can be beaten in a good 2 hours if you're not in a madcap rush through each, and upon beating the boss, you're sent back to the beginning of the game with a new coat of paint and modified gameplay. To give you an idea, a level that was a shooter on the first run through is now a platformer, and others gain the Medusa-like stone attack from villains. The game isn't a walk in the dog park, but it's not unfairly brutal. Dying is only a temporary inconvenience, but it will cost you a fair amount of your money if you're not quick at getting it back. If there's ever a patch or additional DLC, there's some clear missed opportunities that seem like they would enhance the playthrough, especially for a game with such a small set of stages. The controls are simple enough that you can play through using one Joy-Con, but that leads to some glaring omissions. There's no ability to customize the controls. This leads to a number of accidental bombs going off, in my case. The right analog stick goes unused, which would be a great location for an 8-way shot for your ranged attack. This would solve the issue of otherwise being unable to stand in one location and fire. Players need to be confident of their movement. Once something scrolls off screen, you can't go back and recover it. You can also accidentally skip the end level upgrades this way if you're not careful. Save management is a bit disappointing. There's no chance for multiple save states, so if you fully powered up one character, you're going to lose them if you want to try another. That's right, you can't swap your character when you die, and you can't even play through the game without starting a new one, replacing the old one. A stage select option would help mitigate this, but there isn't one. Bereft of dialogue, the game itself is gorgeous and simplistic to follow, but a few aspects of the game just weren't clear. While the cinematics are nice and descriptive enough to get the general gist, a chunk of the story is left up to the player's imagination. Why does my character have multiple color schemes? Is there a reason for the villains to be yokai themed, other than the general Japanese aesthetic? Who's this person selling me upgrades? Great looking graphics don't mean they're without flaws. There's some parts of the game that don't feel like they were stress tests with a character with a double jump, and the font seems to wobble, as if it's been awkwardly scaled. In a world where we're encouraged to stay indoors and away from people, it's an odd time to play a game where you traverse outside with your compatriots. Unless you live with 3 other gamers, Kemono Heroes is a solitary and virtual jaunt through beautiful 16-bit nature. Challenging enough that you'll die a few times, but rewarding enough to keep at it, the game is only hindered by a few meta elements, stuff that could be improved with a patch. As it stands, it's worth a trip through the world twice over, but you'll face the tough decision of deleting your save just to try out another character. That's it for this dive into the Tsundoku Zone, but the stack never ends.